is it?
The Neutral.
Oh, that is not me, team. What up, everybody? You're currently looking at my guest on the on the single player screen. I don't know why this is happening. So yeah, we have Brandon this week, which it's still not. Oh, because this is my own fault. My own fault. I know exactly why. There we go. Hold up. We are having some technical difficulty. Brandon, say something.
Yeah, test 1 2.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, sometimes the desktop audio doesn't show up. All right, so this week we're gonna continue the trend that we did when we had Daniel Rosen on a couple weeks ago. Where we're not just gonna talk about Brandon's history in as a fighting game player and stuff. I don't know. Brandon's never top 8 in an event before, so that's not the type of content he's here for. Instead, I know Brandon as a fellow esports journalist, content creator, whatever you want to call us, charlatans, maybe sellouts. According to Ian Walker, that's our shtick, right? So, but first, I actually want to ask you a question. So your handle on Twitter is RightWellAlways, and I've wondered this, especially since when Daniel Rosen was on. Are you one of the few of us that went to journalism school?
So I didn't go to journalism school.
Uh-oh. There was
I
a
always
sigh.
thought I was, here's the thing. When I was younger, I was like, my mindset was, oh, you know what? I'm going to write books. Then I realized I didn't want to write long books. So I'm going to write screenplays. So I'm going to go into movies. So I studied, actually, in college, film and TV production. And it just so happened that the film part didn't work out, but the TV part worked out pretty fine.
All right, so that's where the RightWellAlways comes from. Oh, snap. Yeah. Jim Basco. Some Jim Basco guys in the chat today.
Oh, okay. Let's go. Let's get it, Jimmy.
He's on the other end of the spectrum, watching other people be on. But so, you've watched the show enough so you know what the next question is, which is, what was your first fighting game?
My first fighting game was Art of Fighting, and there's a funny story behind that.
That's a throwback.
Yeah. So, we all know the classic on the Super Nintendo, right? Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get Street Fighter. I asked for Street Fighter. I really wanted Street Fighter, but I got Art of Fighting, and you know what? I'm happy with that decision because now I can always make this claim of, I played Art of Fighting when everyone else played Street Fighter. So I was the first real SNK shill. But yeah, no, Art of Fighting was dope. To me, it still played like a fighting game, and I was 6, 7, so it didn't really matter to me too much that I didn't get Street Fighter. But that's my first game claim to fame.
Okay.
Art of Fighting back on the SNES.
Man, I didn't even play Art of Fighting until they started doing SNK collection discs. So I guess you're more FGC than me.
I don't know if that makes me more FGC. I think it just makes me more esoteric. I just happen to be the guy that played the really, really old game that everybody else wasn't playing because everyone was playing the more popular one.
Is that people who play Soul Blade? When you bring up Soul Calibur, you're like, oh man, I started Soul Calibur, and some guy always has to chime in, I played Soul Blade, and you're like, good for you.
I'm basically the Street Fighter version of that dude. I feel like I'm the only one. I don't know anyone else who really played not Street Fighter, Art of Fighting for the
probably
SNES.
Hell Pockets. Bet you ask some dude Hell Pockets or James Chen, right? One of those fools. They probably played it. Definitely not Sajam. I feel like Sajam is definitely the guy who only play I guarantee you Sajam's an 09er.
He is.
Oh, he is? Yeah, see?
Yeah, he's an 09er, but his taste is more KI. That's basically what Sajam is known for. For at least in all his talks, he's known for I started with KI, so.
All right. So Now, I know you cover fighting games. Did you ever compete? Like, were you ever just like an O2 warrior at any point?
It's weird. I'm almost going backwards. Like now I actually compete.
So wait, you
Like
didn't start competing until after you became a fighting game content creator?
I didn't compete because I always watched. I always watched. And the reason why was when I was younger, right? Like I told
Mm-hmm.
you about, playing Art of Fighting, but then there was like a big gap in my fighting game days. Like I would go to the arcade here and there. Like I'd like to go to the arcade, but I didn't really I didn't really find that I wanted to like stay there often. Like if I'm losing my money, like I would lose my money and be out. Like I wouldn't come back like the next day and the next day and the next day. I'd come back maybe like 3 4 months later, like to play again. So I never felt like that full rush that a lot of other fighting game players like talk about, like the fact that they have to put their own quota up and stuff. It didn't appeal to me. So, but I always like to watch. So,
So wait, if you weren't a
mhm,
competitor, what in your right mind possessed you to cover fighting games?
because I like to watch. So after really kind of realizing that I just like to watch, I finally got involved with like Evo. Like
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really get introduced to Evo until Street Fighter 4 back when it was Justin Wong versus Daigo, way back when they first started. That was my introduction to like Evo in the fighting game
Mm-hmm.
community. And since that time, I've just been a watcher. I haven't really had the inclination to go to tournaments to compete. And now it's like because I'm in the space covering it, I'd want to be like, you know what, I want to be a part of like the action too. So now I more compete than like just sitting around watching.
Okay, so you went to school for like television broadcast and stuff.
Hmm.
What was the bridge from that to esports coverage?
So just like I told you, my dreams and aspirations were more on the film side of things.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have work. So so I've been kind of like a person who's been doing more PA work and, part-time jobs like after I graduated. I never really struck it with film. And one of the jobs I happened to get into was a job that wasn't even listed as esports. It just so happened that they wanted people who had knowledge of like League of Legends or like, competitive gaming.
Mm-hmm.
This was back in 2016. And when I went to the offices to do the interview, I thought it was just like, all right, whatever. It's a regular PA job. I know this. I know the drill. Come in, carry this, carry that, maybe rig up a couple of lights or whatever. But I realized it was Bleacher Report, and I was like, oh, okay, sports. All right, cool. Like I didn't know what it had to do with esports and competitive gaming. And then as I sat down, like talk with my good friend now, Chris. He's one of the producers on our show, Cheddar Esports. He started like breaking it down to me. It's like, oh, Bleacher Report is trying to do a show that's working in tandem with E League because this was the first year that E League was coming out. And basically, my role it said PA, but at the end of the day, it was me, him, and Grant. If you know the CEO, it was just us three
Mm-hmm.
making a daily esports show, and it's something that, at least in the space at that time, wasn't existing, with the exception of Yahoo Esports. Yahoo Esports came like probably a month after we did, and we were going back and forth with just daily esports coverage. And
Oh,
obviously now both parties aren't around. Bleacher Report decided that they didn't have the audience to do it. But in my opinion, I think they just didn't want to focus on doing it, and I think they just had like a little squabble with Ely. They didn't want to have to do this. Like we were just kind of like the thing that was thrown on Bleacher Report, as opposed to like, yeah, this is something we want to do. Now they do like esports coverage, but they kind of like piggybacked on the foundation that we built, because not the basically the Twitter page and the Instagram pages is all the pages that they use after the show Eastream. That's the name of the
mm-hmm.
show. Kind of like went the way of the dinosaur. They built on that foundation because we at least built up an audience from the small stuff that we were doing, and people who would catch on to be like, oh wow, you guys are covering like Splatoon. Like I remember we covered like a Splatoon tournament, and like people were like, "Oh wow, like Bleacher Report's covering Splatoon." And at the time, I was into esports, but I didn't. I was into esports, but I didn't realize like what it could potentially do for people, and like getting those kind of experiences and seeing like how people gravitate towards just seeing their game being recognized made me feel like, oh wow, this is something, this is something cool, this is something important, and that's why I kind of started pushing myself to be really really take seriously the idea of like covering people's games and covering people's passion with some kind of authority. And it means kind of sometimes you have to be within the game and you have to really buckle down and start playing them.
So I guess we'll get to the topic that people will probably tune in to this episode for. Is that you and Daniel, not purposefully, both kind of started doing esports at the same time. You both had a background of sorts in the FGC. It's 3 years later.
3 years later.
What do you think has changed about the way esports journalism and the FGC cohabitate?
When I asked myself this question, especially when you posted it in the Twitter, like, the tweet that you put out, I realized as soon as you posted it, I was like, yeah, it really did change a lot, huh? And the way that it changed, in my opinion, I feel like it went full circle. It came from an idea of like these big events and things were happening, like for example in my case E-League and Bleacher Report getting into it, and us seeing what's in the space and saying like, oh, we need to try to cover as many unique stories as we can because we're trying to bring in as much people to look at us as possible. And now I feel like a lot of esports outlets, that's kind of what they do, right? Like you bring up Daniel, and if you've seen some of their content now compared to the content they used to do before, they've very much expanded into covering the FGC because one, they've kind of proven that, hey, the viewership is there if you produce it right, if you actually put a lot of time and effort into it. But two, it's imperative to these esports companies to be as broad as possible, because at the end of the day, the investors who are getting into these spaces are looking at it and saying, why aren't you hitting this number? Why aren't you hitting that number? And it's like we have our tentpoles like League of Legends, Counter-Strike, things like that, but we still need things to kind of boost us over the top. And that's where you get into your FGCs, your Rocket Leagues, your tier 2 esports that can be like, all right, we got our tentpole things. Like when League of Legends is down, like for example, now we need something to boost it up. Oh, just so happens that Tekken World Tour now is coming up. Capcom Cup is coming up. We had Red Bull coming up. So the FGC, I think, has put itself in a really good space for coverage, but I don't think it's the main attraction for anybody. And that's basically how it was before. So it really came full circle. It had a moment where, one, we started like just covering it blanket. Then we just like research because there were so many outlets like leaving like within like 2017, 2016, like no, 2017 I think was when a lot of people just 2017, 2018 is when a lot of like outlets just started just dropping off the map.
I mean, I called that that was our snap, honestly. Like that was
right,
our
like we lost, we not even just lost whole outlets. I think we just lost divisions, right? Like if you look at Dot Esports, when they had best of 3 that was part of Dot, and like Steve Ace King Offsuit Steve, he was doing a lot of coverage for them. Their division for fighting games just kind of like evaporated as soon as like Steve basically built that up for coverage for them, and it's like as soon as they let him go, it just fell to the wayside. So sorry. So it just basically went from, okay, we can do blanket coverage of the FGC to like build on our 10 polls because we need to hit those numbers, to we still aren't hitting the numbers anyways, start regressing. Certain platforms go on, Yahoo Esports left, we left at Bleacher Report. Dot Esports start downsizing. Slingshot, it's gone. And it's
That's the
like, all
one that
right,
hurts.
we only have the one, we only have now just the resources to cover the 10 polls, League of Legends, Counter-Strike, Overwatch coming up. But now I think everyone's in kind of like a decent place. And now it's like you're seeing the FGC content come back. So we went literally full circle.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting way to put it to an extent because, like, I remember when I first started writing esports content, you couldn't get an outlet to really want to do fighting game stuff.
Right.
Now, I was in a different position because I was at Esports Heaven when I started, and so Esports Heaven kind of just covered everything.
Right. And again, that goes back to my earlier point. Everybody covered everything when they first started. And all of a sudden, because certain metrics and certain things weren't getting hit, cutting started. And for whatever reason, the first thing they started cutting was FGC content.
Yeah, but I still remember that pitches for fighting game stuff, because I started in like 2015, were like hard. Like I remember Slingshot wouldn't take an FGC pitch except when I was at Evo. So like the whole time I was pitching to Slingshot, I'd be like, oh man, because they wanted me for my interviews. Because I've told this story on the Daniel episode that like I was doing a League of Legends podcast. They asked if I wrote, and I was like, yeah, I'm an interviewer. And they're like, cool. And I remember I'd be like, all right, I'm doing this interview with like Frost Curran, and they're like, oh, that's great. And then I'd be like, yo, could I do Chris G? And they're like, eh. But then the second I was at Evo, they were like, oh yeah, I mean, you're at Evo. And I remember I had to like sell them though on people. Like I brought up, they were totally down for the Pokken players because Pokken was like the new hotness. Even though I think by that Evo, Pokken wasn't even really a hotness period.
Right.
But like when I brought up Chris G, they're like, well, who's Chris G? And I was like, what do you mean who's Chris G? What? Or I had to like tell them whom, or like I'd be like, I want to do Marlon Pie. And they're like, what? Like, who's Marlon Pie? And I was like, I mean, he's got this many Twitter followers. They're like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
But like, and that's still true for me now in esports though. Because when so last year when I was doing a lot more fighting game stuff with Jinx, I wanted to interview NL.
Right.
And they were like, and NL was like third in the world at the time, right? It's not like NL this season where he was like pretty low. Like he was third in the world. And they were like, well, we've never heard of this guy. And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He's like third in the world. And so I had to, and they were like, he also doesn't have that many Twitter followers. And I was like, yeah, because he's Korean and he tweets in Korean.
He's a fighting game player in Korea, like, yeah, they're really good at Tekken, but like, outside of like that, their fighting game scene is strong, but it's not popular, right?
Well,
the
so
FGC
that's
in Korea is like the FGC everywhere else.
But so that was the thing, and that's the thing that I'm still experiencing as a freelancer, is that like, yeah, you can get anybody to write a story on like Arslan, right? Everybody wants an Arslan story. But like if I say, yo, and I guess IDOM right now, but if I had pitched IDOM, or even, let me use a different example, Just a Kid. So at the start of the Capcom Pro Tour season this year, right? Like, Just a Kid was like doing really well at like NA events, and I think he was like at one point he was like 31st,
right,
in the standings. And
he was definitely getting up there. Yeah. If
I had pitched Just a Kid, nobody would have touched it.
Right.
It'd be so weird because like Just a Kid was like, here's a good story. He's a young kid who got an opportunity to do the Street Fighter League, and now he's like putting up tournament results, and is like and if I had pitched that to anybody at the time when he was still like qualified, and even when he was like slightly out of the window, because it wasn't until towards the end that he like super was no longer in contention for Capcom Cup. But like there was a point where he was like 35th, 38th. If I tried to pitch a story about Just a Kid, I could not get Jinx or like an ESPN or something to touch it. But like Arslan, always you're like, yeah, Bonchen, sure, Problem X, sure. Even someone like Infectious would be a hard sell.
Right.
So that's like the weird thing to me is that like in some ways I think that the esports journalism is like, oh man, you know what? we've been sleeping on this fighting game thing. But on the other hand, it's like it has to be a dope story for them. It's not an impossible anymore. Like we don't need an L.I. Joe anymore of like, oh man, the story from completely out of left field. Right? But they still need something that they think just like, and I guess this is like good journalism in general of like things that resonate. But it's just so weird to me that like some of these sites will run stories on like a tier 3 Overwatch team before they'll run a story on Just a Kid.
You know why I think that is? I think that happens because people don't believe in the FGC for its numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They believe in the FGC for those human interest stories because we have those a dime a dozen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you realize, did you see? I think it was ESPN. They covered Broly, right? And they like the way they covered it like it was a brand new story. And I'm like, I knew about Broly way back when I was at Bleacher Report. This is 3 years going back. Why did all of a sudden Broly become like this story that needed to be covered now when it was something that's already been like talked about? Like, for example, Gutex did that amazing interview with him when he was at Evo way back. I think this is even going back to like 2014, 2013 when it was like Street 4 days. So it's like, why did those stories start coming back all of a sudden? And I feel like it's because maybe a lot of esports outlets focus is going from, all right, there's too much by the numbers coverage, there's too much analytical coverage, we need more of those human interest stories, and it just so happens the FGC has them by abundance, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe they're just looking for the biggest human interest stories that they can get into that will click numbers for them easily, as opposed to kind of building those stories up, which is kind of what you would want to do, right?
Yeah, and so I obviously, like, I've worked in this medium now for well, specifically for esports for like the last 4 years. So I understand like numbers are important and like, you know, resource allocation. But it comes to a topic that we were talking about off stream. You know, there at the event that, you know, we met again at Red Bull Conquest. Right after that event wrapped up. I was one of the few content creators at that event. Born Free did stuff too, I believe, but not a lot. Like I know he did Chris CCH, and I don't remember who else he did. But you know, Neon, fighting game player, not the Street Fighter Neon. Not there's like a Neon, I think, at like MK or something.
Yeah, I knew which one you're talking about. I didn't know there was
I'm talking more for the audience's sake. But Neon started this sort of conversation on Twitter that here comes another event, and you know and it's the same people being interviewed again. And an esports journalist, a games writer who is a fan of esports, sort of piggybacked on that. And also said that, you know, a lot of these esports writers, when they cover fighting games, they're all about numbers. They don't care about the FGC. And as one of the only content creators that was at Conquest, I felt a little called out. So I went to final round on my own dime. I was unemployed at the time. And I interviewed random people. I did AO Boom, who plays Soul Calibur for Accelerate Gaming or Esports. I don't know what I think they're gaming. I did Chelsea, who is now the UIU FGC manager, but at the time was just one of the lead TOs for Wednesday Night Fights. I did Rose, Ember and Roses. You know, she does combat for the cause. I did LPN, who, if we're being real, LPN has not been a big name in a minute. Hasn't had any real decent tournament results in a while, and we talked about that.
Right.
You know, and I did P-Chan. I did Piran. And, you know, because you remember, the FGC, they want new voices. They want new interviews. And nobody watched those interviews.
that's the story of the FGC, in my opinion. I will say one thing about the names that you did name, though. You realize a lot of those names now are kind of like names you can say that are blowing up a little bit.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I
Right.
feel like of those names, so Pichan has definitely, like, she blew up because of EXO Academy. I think of all of the EXO cadets, right? Because we've had, as somebody who's done EXO Academy, we've had two types of EXO cadets: people who, like, people already knew, like Robinova and Phantom Miri.
Phantom Miri, yeah.
Yeah, like Miria.
Sonny
Like
Konatsu.
those two are people already knew, right?
Right.
They didn't. EXO Academy was it for them. I think was more about getting them over the hurdle that they already had.
Right. Giving them more skills, basically.
Yeah, and then you have people like SFL, SVL, and Pchan who, like, you didn't know. You might have known them because, like, you go to a lot of FGC events and you've seen them around, and you know they're really chill, but they're not regulars. Like, Pchan's Twitter blew up from being an EXO Academy.
Right.
And she talked about that in our interview, and she's talked about that, like, she started an actual stream schedule, and now she's, like, a Twitch affiliate, and she averages like 10 to 15 viewers, and, like, that's great. And it's cool that these people have blown up now. But it's sort of this weird thing where, like, the FGC always feels like esports media, even if it's people like me who, like, have always done fighting games, right? Like, fighting games is not a new thing that I just, like, started covering because it's the new hotness. They think, like, we're always disingenuous.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we do what they want us to do, right? Do these other stories, give these other people a chance. What they really mean is, why aren't you interviewing? Like, when Neon says that, Neon doesn't mean, why aren't you interviewing other people? What Neon's actually saying is, why aren't you interviewing me?
Right.
He doesn't care if I interview guy who finished 76, right?
Right.
What he really wanted to say, but, it sounds better if he says, well, look at these esports journalists, they're never interviewing anyone new, it's the same people. What he really is saying is, why are you interviewing me?
Right. And the thing is, I have to challenge on that. And anybody that says that, when they definitely know they want the interviews themselves, you got to do something to get that interview. It's facts.
Or, like, come up to me. I told Pchan this.
I
told EXO Cadets this. Like, if you feel you did something dope at an event, you have a Maureen moment, right, where she beat Dogura, right, and she feels like that should be something that should be covered.
Right.
I mean, have the balls to go up to someone who's media and be like, "Yo, I just whooped Dogura's ass."
Yeah, convince, like, we're there. Convince us of, like, okay, cool. You convince me why that story is something that I can go to my bosses and the people who are saying, like, I don't know this person. Give me ammunition for whenever I have to go to that editor and be like, hey, I want to cover this story because, I've seen XYZ, this, and I feel like it can blow up. I feel like the story can blow up. Don't go on Twitter and then be like, hey, like, these esports people, they only cover the same people. We cover the same people because at the end of the day, those are the people who are being consistent about, their social media presence. They're being consistent about their tournament results, their play, their presence. They're being consistent vision so that if I say something like, I got an interview with Daigo, my editor isn't questioning who's that.
Or, like, in my case, like, I did Snake Eyes, Smug, Vicious, Tasty Steve, and that's it. Those were the 4 I did. If I go to an editor, and I mean, granted, I had to self-release that content. That's a completely different story, and it doesn't really have to do with today. Is that, like, if I go to an editor and I'm like, yo, I interviewed Smug, he might not know who Smug is, but, like, if you Google Smug and FGC, there's going to be hilarious clips that come up. There's going to be, now you could say Street Fighter 5, but, a year ago it would have been more Street Fighter 4 highlights. Balrog. Right?
All the stuff he's done with Punko in the past. Like,
yeah, it would have,
that
like,
stuff is gold.
Easy. But if now on the flip side, sure, it's partially my job to convince my editor, yo, Neon, he had an amazing tournament. You know, he outdid some bigger names. We really should be talking about this. But like, my editor's then gonna Google Neon and be like, well, I don't see shit.
Yeah, like you got to give me ammunition. At the end of the day, you gotta either get those tournament results up or get that presence up on social media. At the end of the day, I can only do so much. And if what you're giving me is, you know, just a rant on Twitter, I can't go to my boss and be like, see, like, my boss is not gonna say anything about that. They're just gonna look at that and be like, all right, cool. There's another person complaining. Like, why should that story matter to us? And you know, it sounds harsh, but at the end of the day, this is, I hate to say it, but this is esports, and it's esports is very much built on the idea that it's marketing for the games, right? Like that's the foundation of what esports is. So it's like you're either playing the game or you're not. And it's like I can only do so much. If I feel like I can make that argument work and I can go to my editors and be like, all right, I want to cover this story because this person's doing this, I see the potential. If all I got to say to my like editors and the people who want to see my stories, I see the potential, that doesn't mean anything to them. They need hard numbers, because at the end of the day, they have to answer to their bosses like, why isn't this story doing well?
I mean, and that's the thing that, like, you know, and I give credit to people like yourself and like Saint Cola who like will say stuff on Twitter, which is like, at the end of the day, there's a difference between what I put out on my blog, right? Like what I put out on sagenosis.com or what I throw up on this YouTube channel. At the end of the day, like, I know that I'm making no money, right? Like, right. I have an expectation of like how an episode with Logan's going to do versus an episode with you. If this episode hits like 20 views, fucking money in the bank, Pippin ain't easy.
Shoot, that's money in the bank to me too.
Right?
I'd be surprised if 20 people know my name.
but now if Logan does 20 views, then I'm worried and I'm concerned and like shit's crashed and burned. But like, y'all have to realize something. I need to get paid.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not gonna get paid because I interviewed somebody that like came top 6.
And it's
shitty. It's not great.
It's an exchange, right? Like, I feel like this goes into, I guess, another topic, and sponsorship in the FGC and how that works, right? I see on Twitter constantly. How do I get sponsored? Either questions about how do I get sponsored or why am I not sponsored? And it's like, what have you been doing? Like, what is your contributions to the FGC and esports as a whole that says to a sponsor, okay, cool, we can put our backing behind this person? And it's like, it's our job in the media to kind of like help you in that pursuit, but you got to give us something to help you with that as well. Like, we can write our own personal pieces, but at the end of the day, you do want the stories in the ESPNs, you do want the stories in the .esports, the Xertos, and if you've seen, like, a lot of those outlets want to do that kind of content, but they can't just do they can't just do any and everybody, unfortunately.
I mean, I'll give a great example on the sponsorship train, because, you know, everyone goes, well, you know, I'm top ending events, I'm top 16ing, like, why am I not sponsored? Tell me the last time K-Brad won a tournament. Tell me the last time K-Brad top 8'd. Tell me the last time K-Brad top 16'd.
Gotta be Street Fighter 4 days, at least.
Is K-Brad still sponsored?
K-Brad is the sponsor. Nah, yeah,
no, he's still sponsored, and you know why? Because K-Brad is K-Brad, and what does that mean? When he's on a team, he ride or dies that team, and like, he still bleeds blue for EG even after all these years. He talks about how he's down, like, he's still down for all the ghost COD people, I think it was. Like, he was tweeting about them even when he was off the team. I think he's on Rise now. You know,
he's on Rise, yeah. I saw him chilling some G Fuel.
Yeah, you know, the thing is like, my point is that, like, people like him, they're not staying employed because, like, you know, back in Street Fighter 4, he was good, so, like, he's milking that. He knows how to promote, a brand. Like, he's got a really great social media presence. He makes really great video content. He streams. He makes YouTube shit. Like, he knows what he's doing. That's why, you know, when somebody like Punk gets let go of a team, he has some trouble getting on. Or like Dew spends a large amount of time unsponsored. And I think part of that is because Dew doesn't do a whole lot outside of being good at Street Fighter.
I think he's definitely about to change that though soon. Because
he's got the house. He's got the house now.
He's got the house, and he's got.
I think he's trying to go the Justin Wong route. I think he wants to, like, you know, make, like, he pulls in his own sponsor. Yeah, he's the brand. But the point is that, like, there's a difference between somebody like K-Brad and somebody like Knuckle Dew. And if this isn't a slight at Knuckle Dew, maybe the right offers weren't coming, and it was like a Tokido, who was a JDCR. When I talked to JDCR at Evo, he said it wasn't that teams weren't trying to sign him when he left Echo Fox. It was that he never felt like he got the right offer. And Tokido said the same thing when he left Echo Fox. He was like, I just never felt like anybody who was giving me offers was right for me. So maybe, Dew, you can, like, come out and be like, you're wrong. I just turned down offers left and right. But he kept always saying, like, oh, I got an offer. Like, I'm going to have an announcement for you guys. And then, like, nothing ever came out. So I think to an extent, he might have been struggling. He might have had trouble, you know. I mean, there's a reason why Ghost kicked him, right? Like, if you're not winning, you got to be doing other things.
Right. And
he doesn't really stream. He doesn't really make YouTube content. He's barely on Twitter. When you're not winning, an org needs you to do something else.
Something else, yeah.
Like, look at Ricky. Ricky Ortiz.
Ricky's lifetime EG. I don't ever see her not being on that team. But I think she's lifetime EG. But
like the trend that I'm going with, and I know for you it's kind of like kicking, like, you know, beating a dead horse. But I think the thing that the FGC, like, it doesn't matter like how many threads Mama Dow makes, how many threads Emily from Equinox makes, or, you know, Drew or Jinhee from UIU makes. It doesn't matter. Like, people don't seem to grasp the concept that, like, being sponsored or, like, making the esports money isn't just about being good. If that was true, you know, Moke would never be unsigned, right?
Right.
You know, if it was just about being good, then, you know, K-Brad would not have a team. Ricky wouldn't have a team. Chris G gets to have a team because he's still good at Dragon Ball.
Everything. He's always going to be,
or like Justin, right? Like if sponsorship was all about being good, then Justin, all 12 of Justin Wong's sponsors would have dropped him by now.
If it was all about being good, Justin shouldn't have any sponsors this year, because
he would just lose them all. He would just.
But look at Justin. Justin's like a walking, like, NASCAR. Like, sponsors here.
Yo, I really want him to just have a jacket that's just all the Velcro patches.
I thought that because remember he just now put out his jersey. I thought it was gonna be like straight up just like one of those like NASCAR jackets with that would have been dope if you would have did that, as opposed to just doing like a regular esports jersey, like a whole
where like the whole back is just sponsor after sponsor.
Yeah, damn, man. And the thing is, it's like Justin is interesting, man. Like he definitely this year specifically he left Echo Fox and was like, yeah, man, I'm bigger than the brand, and he proved it. He proved it like so big.
Well, Justin, I don't have any proof to this, and so maybe I shouldn't say shit. But you know what? This is my shit, and nobody watches the show anyway, so I don't fucking care. I'm pretty sure Justin,
until something gets clipped and it's gonna be all over Twitter. But
Justin was probably one of the people let go from Echo Fox purely from when they were like trying to like stem the bleeding, and they were like, well, you know, yeah, he did have a pretty good year last year because Manat was bullshit. But I think at the time when they were like, all right, well, we gotta keep Sonic Fox, right? He's just great for the brand. And Sonic Fox, I guess, had enough pull to keep the Kill Sage. That was like a package deal. And then I think when it came to people like Taquito and Justin and JDCR, well, they had been gotten rid of JDCR and Saint. But I think when it came to like Taquito and Justin, I think it was purely like they were like, well, all right, guys, we don't want to cut you because you're Taquito and Justin Wong, but like we want to pay you blank. Mm-hmm. And Taquito and Justin Wong were like, yo, we're Taquito and Justin Wong. Like, that's not Taquito, Justin Wong money. And they were like, well, homie, like, that's the money we're giving you. And they were like...
know yeah. And now we all know the background as to why people were getting cut, so...
Yeah, but I think the thing for Justin is interesting, because I think someone like IDOM can go that route.
You think so?
I think. Well, actually, this goes into something that we were going to talk about like poverty, air quote poverty FGC.
Poverty, yes, poverty.
Poverty FGC, which is that you saw all of these tweets after IDOM won, right? Where people are like, people were like saying quotes, don't wonder who's going to sign IDOM now. Or what can it was not what can IDOM bring to an org, but what can an org bring to IDOM? That was what I saw all over Twitter, with people being like, IDOM's too good for an org now, like, org's gotta prove to IDOM that they're worth his time. And I was like, my dudes, that is not how this works.
It's not how any of this works.
That's not, like, the FGC has some of the worst financial takes I think in the world when it comes to money. Granted, League of Legends spends money really fucking weird in North America, and like it blows my mind.
Louis Vuitton.
Yo, I was gonna start with 1.5 million for Huni.
I mean,
or was it 2 million? It was like 2 million for Huni.
I was hearing 3 million.
Oh man, but so maybe we shouldn't say the FGC is the worst with money, but the FGC, I think, gets a lot of things wrong, and it's why the FGC has problems growing. Is because the FGC is just not... They don't is IDOM valuable right now? Yes. He won the Capcom Cup, so, like, any team that's looking... Like, he doesn't have to just sign with any team. But this kid doesn't travel. Period. And we have no idea if you can still qualify next year not leaving the country.
Well, at least for next year, he's automatically qualified, so he's straight.
But is that something an org wants? Like a guy that only goes to like 6 events in a year?
No, it's not. It doesn't help their bottom line.
Right? Like why would we be paying you to go to like 4 events in a year, and like 3 of them are back to back, right? Like Combo Breaker, CEO, Evo, or like, and I guess East Coast Throwdown because it got made a premiere. Like, those are all in a row.
I think in terms of IDOM, he has a very unique position where he's at least like very dedicated to streaming. Like, he doesn't get big numbers, but he definitely streams all the time. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I feel like even if if a sponsor picked him up, a sponsor would probably pick him up for his streaming as opposed to like his tournament results, at least for this year. Like next year, they might be like, all right, IDOM, we need you to travel and we need you to do, some of the things that other players out there in the world are doing. But I think even for this year, like a 1-year contract for any team, like looks pretty good. Like, hey, I got the current Capcom Cup champion on our team, even though he doesn't travel anywhere. Like we still got him,
right? Because you imagine being the partnership manager for like, I don't know, like Cloud9, right? Mm-hmm. And like they come into the meeting room and they're like, yo, we should sign IDOM. And the guy's like, oh yeah, he won, like, because Jack knows about fighting games. He claims that like he got his start in fighting games. That's what he told me in an interview once. So like he signs, he's like, oh man, yeah, IDOM won Capcom Cup, that's great. By the way, like, how many events does IDOM go to in a year? Well, you see what happened was...
What happened was,
he goes to like...
He goes to Evo.
He goes to Evo. He goes to like 5. 5 out of what? 14. Well... Does he leave 14. The country? Do you count Puerto Rico?
It is over a sea.
But like, imagine that
body of water. It's a sea.
Remember, imagine that conversation though. Like, if I owned a team and someone was trying to pitch IDOM to me, and I didn't already have a Street Fighter player, that shit would be hard.
Again, it's a 1-year contract. Like, at least I got that's literally all. That's literally it. 1-year contract. At least I got. And the thing is, Idom right now can like
He can
ask for
also
price.
not take a team. He's got 250K.
Right. That's what I'm saying. He can his price now is up there, and I have some information about that. He was getting pitched some sponsors before he blew up, but at least from what I've heard, it's like school was a priority for him, so that's why he didn't sign with people, and that's an admirable thing. However, on Twitter, the way it gets spun is like, these teams, these sponsors, they don't know anything. They never pick up the right players. I hope he never signs with it. I'm like, come on, man. Like, you really think Idom should have to spend his own money to travel just because he made 250K? Like, no. Like, let him keep his money, man. Like, let him keep his money. Let a team get, some shine out of it. Like, why should he have to spend his own money just because he made it?
But that's how the
nobody else spends their own money.
FGC. But that's the way FGC views money, right?
Yeah, like, you get it and you spend it, and that's not the way that we should be. That's not the way that we should be going, because at the end of the day, it's not sustainable.
I mean, like, look at people complaining about, like, tournament fees, right? They're like, oh, man, why do I gotta pay $70 to, like, go to an event? And it's like, I don't know, because the venue's expensive and, like, streaming costs money, right? Like, the whole reason CEO had to move to Daytona and everybody hates it is because, like, one of the things Jabali said was that to have the proper internet infrastructure back in Orlando was, like, costing him an arm and a leg to be able to stream. So, like, people think that, like, events are cheap.
Yeah, and I don't know why people feel like this, because I feel like the tournament organizers themselves have been very vocal about the idea that, like, hey, these are expensive. Like, for example,
like, none of these guys are getting. Well, I think Jabali's probably the only one that's, like, probably doing pretty well. But, like, I know for a fact from talking to other
DreamHack and stuff,
yeah. But, like, I know from talking to, like, other TOs that, like, they're not, like, living cushy lives off of your tournament fee.
No, these tournament fees are just literally keeping things afloat for maybe another year.
Yeah.
And I was about to bring up an example of the Hado, right? It's he's on Twitter. It seems like he's, like, really hurt at the fact that he has to, like, raise the tournament fees. And in my mind, I'm like, dude, you put on the best event of the year, like, bar none. Like, even Evo's not touching you. Like, your fees should be going up and up and up. People should be straight up buying tickets, like, in advance for your tournament the next year. You have such a good product and a good brand that people are going to follow you regardless. Like, I don't see someone like the Hado having a bad year with Combo Breaker ever. And because I've seen the brand itself, Combo Breaker, and I trust it. So the fact that we're so scared to do things like raise tournament fees or bring in certain sponsors that people might be, like, squeamish about, in terms of, oh no, big money is coming in to take over the FGC, is absurd. Because at the end of the day, these costs are going up and they're going to keep going up. And it's like, if we want to have these amazing events and amazing experiences, we got to start shelling out somewhere. And if we don't want it out of our pocket, then we got to get people who have big money to put it out of theirs. So there's got to be some kind of balance. And I see every day on Twitter that people just don't get it. Like, they don't understand the fact that it's like, look, we contribute something to the greater esports thing, as much as we don't like to call ourselves esports. But we constantly, like, hold ourselves back from doing it, and I don't understand why. I don't see any benefit right now in constantly saying that the FGC is not a part of esports.
I will say that when I first got into doing esports journalism, right, content creation, whatever you want to call it, that the FGC being, oh, we're not esports, like, that was way louder than it is now. I will say that, like, that I feel like that's the inverse, right? Is that, it's weird because, like, the FGC, I feel like the voices of, like, we can't be esports ever. Like, even James Chen has kind of, like, gone to the other side of the argument. Because James Chen was one of those people in the very early days of being like, nope, we can't be esports. We're not esports. We're too good for that.
But at least I feel like back then they had a reason, right? They were going up against CGS, and CGS was just a terrible thing in general. Like it hurt esports all across like other games as well. So it's like I can understand it from James' point of view. I can't understand it from the current crop of people who want to have these FGC experiences, because at the end of the day, we've seen that like we have sponsors like Red Bull who are like amazing. And it's like, why can't we have another Red Bull come in?
So that's the thing that's super weird for me, is that like people are anti esports,
right?
But they're pro players getting paid, right? Like let's look at the perfect example, Tekken. So at Tekken, the Tekken World Tour lacks pretty hard in big sponsors. Their biggest sponsor is Twitch, but it's pretty obvious that like Twitch sponsors it the way Twitch sponsors everything that's on its platform.
Mm-hmm. Astro too. Astro now is a big sponsor for Tekken World Tour.
But they're not no. When I say big sponsor, I mean people that like pour. So like, it's not Capcom Cup, which has Sony.
Right.
Like that.
But that deal might have ended. I don't think that deal still holds weight.
Yeah, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like Sony versus Astro, right? Like who?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So
Twitch
like
Twitch versus Astro is yeah. I get
you.
Yeah,
and
Amazon
Twitch also sponsors everything, right? Anything
right.
that's esports that streams on Twitch, Twitch is a sponsor of. Like Twitch sponsors Rocket League, Rainbow Six, Call of Duty. So Twitch money doesn't. When Twitch sponsors something, I don't always believe that there's like a wealth of money coming into it. And so we had that story in 2018 that I even brought up on Cheddar, which was Tekken World Tour doesn't really pay. You know, the winner of Tekken World Tour makes the same amount of money as somebody who got invited to Capcom Cup. Right? Like, I think it was like second place at Tekken World Tour in 2018 was like the same amount of money that like 16th got at Capcom Cup, which means that you basically showed up.
Yeah.
And you won twice.
Yeah.
That was, and I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, how does somebody who comes in second at a premier event get the same amount of money of somebody at the other premier event for phoning it in? Wait a second. And so everybody was like, wait, this isn't great. Like, because Q-Dens announced retirement. Q-Dens was like, I can't do this anymore. Screw this. I'm done. And people were like, oh no, we've lost Q-Dens again. This is a travesty. We need more money. But then when people say like, esports, they're like, no, esports.
No,
we don't want esports.
Man.
It's like the comic. It's like the comic of the dog where it's like no take, only throw for the frisbee, right? No,
I love that dog.
Right? It's that. That's the FGC. The FGC wants the players to get paid, right? They want dope content. They want awesome. They want well-run events, right, with no problems. They want their favorite players to be able to do this for a living. They want the payouts to be good.
They want their tournaments to be combo breaker.
Yeah, but then, and they don't want to pay venue fees. They want their venue fees to be like $25,
as possible,
right? But then when you say like, all right, well then we need sponsors. We need non-endemics. We need to be more esports. They're like, whoa. No, you got to give us all of those things, but you can't have esports money. No take, only throw.
No take.
That actually should have been the real title of this episode. No take, only throw.
No take, only throw.
Right? Nah, like that's. And it's even true for like people who are like, well, then you got the people on Twitter who are like, oh, we should go back to the old days. You know what? Esports, like, we've got it wrong. The esports bubble's gonna pop, and we'll still be here doing grassroots stuff. And it's like, you do realize that we have some pretty big sponsors right now. If we went back to the old days, like, we'd be playing for bragging rights. And sure, there are some people that would still do that.
Right.
But I don't know if I'm spending $200, like $400 to go. Not as a content creator, as a fan. I'm not spending $400 to go to an event for bragging rights.
Exactly.
Like 5 times a year. I'm not flying 5 times a year to watch people for like bragging rights.
Yeah, exactly. You need to have some kind of like way of, keeping yourself afloat. Like if you want to do this as a like even as just a hobby in general, it's you don't want to have to just do it and there's an empty feeling in it, right?
Yeah,
Like you want to have some kind of goal and some kind of purpose. And yeah, for everybody, that goal is not, winning Capcom Cup, but for some people it is. And those people are the people who are performing at the highest level right now. So why should your say, you the person who just wants the bare minimum, why should your say be the thing that dictates how other people live their lives and how other people make their decisions for what they want to do with their life, right?
yeah.
And that's, I don't know. I don't know why the FGC puts itself in that position. It can we can just stop this like nonsense argument of like the FGC isn't esports, because at the end of the day, if
Yeah.
you're a person that complained about the way Capcom Cup was run this year, you're esports. I don't
Right?
care. I don't care how you feel about grassroots, because at the end of the day,
Well,
that
also, the
LCQ was
Capcom
the
Cup
most
is like,
grassroots. That LCQ was the most grassroots thing that we could have had.
right? Fucking ran at a nightclub.
Right, ran at a nightclub. People were on their phones, like straight
Well-
up recording matches. Had to be
Well, so
starting
here's
off
the
with
thing, though, about the Capcom Cup. For, because the person who wrote that article, just trashing Capcom left and right. He's always talking about, FGC's to esports, FGC's to esports. But, like, then you should never like the Capcom Cup, because it's a purely manufactured thing to be esports.
Not even that. You shouldn't like the Tekken World Tour. You shouldn't like the Arc Revo World Tour.
You shouldn't like any of the
SoCal World
tours,
Tour.
because
You shouldn't
all
like
of
any
the
those
tours are manufactured to be esports. So, like,
Right.
every word that comes out of your mouth should be, these tours are killing our community.
Right, and they're not, because they're giving people a way to have a livelihood, and then they're also helping out the people who just want to have a hobby in that they stay around. These tournament organizers aren't going to be able to sustain the levels that they're at with no
Without
sponsor
tours.
money.
If there was no
Right.
tours, I'm sorry,
Or no tours in general, yeah.
Let's talk about this. I don't think Combo Breaker could, run 26 different event games if it wasn't also collecting Tekken World Tour and Capcom Cup money. Even
Exactly.
if Tekken World Tour and Capcom Cup money is like $2,000, which it probably isn't.
Right.
It's probably a little bit more than that. But let's say it's $2,000, $1,000 each. If that $2,000 wasn't coming in, Combo Breaker would be like a 10-game event.
Right. Because
Right.
at the end of the day, now there's got to be sacrifices made, because we can't sustain all these tournaments. And yeah, people could probably push to do it, but guess what? You know what's going to go up? Entrance fees. And if you don't want to pay $200, $300 entrance fees to have 26 games, you kind of need a Red Bull, you kind of need an Astro, and you kind of need someone else footing the bill. So the fact that we keep constantly saying that FGC is not esports, we're already esports. That argument is like already out of the water. And if
Yeah.
you complain about any of the tours or any of the way Capcom Cup was run this year, or you praise the way that Tekken World Tour was this year, that's so hype and so amazing, but you don't want to be FGC or you don't want to be esports, you're not helping anybody in your argument. You might as well just not be. You're not helping anyone. That argument doesn't help anyone. It just puts everyone in this weird limbo where it's like, oh, okay, like we want to have these big events, but we don't want to have the money to make these big events. Cool.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same. Like there's the same two things I see on FGC Twitter. Well, same three. We're not esports.
Mm-hmm.
We want our players to make more money. Or no, actually, it's more the why aren't we sponsored?
No, it's more specific. Why are the prize pools so small?
Oh yeah, and that's
the
something
very
we share with
specific one.
Smash.
Why is the prize pool so small? Like,
And then last but not least,
and
Street
Smash is a
Fighter
good
4 was
example.
better than 5. Like those are the
Yeah,
those are the
Street
three
Fighter 4
things
is
that I'll
better than 5.
see on Twitter. I think until I die. Like I'll be like 74, and I'll like boot up Twitter on my glasses, and the first and like it'll be Street Fighter 7 or something on stream, and I'll see a tweet pop up, and it'll be, "Man, Street Fighter 4 is better than this game," and I'll be like, I'm old. I just want to move on.
It's like I can't even remember how to play Street Fighter 4. Like
One frame link. What was that again?
What frame link? Huh?
But
you press one button.
But we brought up the tours, and we've been at this for an hour, and I don't want to go much over an hour. You do this thing called Cheddar Esports, and you guys are talking about the esports moments of the year.
Oh yeah.
So for you personally, what are your 2 FGC moments of the year?
So I feel like I want to have 3 because Arslan.
All right, fine. You can have 3.
Okay, fine. Arslan is gonna be the obvious number 1, right? There's no story in all of esports that compares to the way. There's no story in all of esports that compares to what Arslan did this year. Period. Like no one's telling me that they. I could take if I took Booga's name and said this was a Fortnite game, and I told him this is Arslan's. If I took Arslan's story with Fortnite and Booga, no one would even be questioning that right now. I take it with any other game, no one questions it, because it's the type of story
I honestly,
that you write in,
by
like,
the way,
books,
since we share a moment of the year, I'll chime in on this.
Yeah.
When ESPN announced who Arslan was against for moment of the year, like Booga and all this other stuff, I was like, shit, he's gonna lose to Booga. Booga's this 14-year-old that wins $3 million. Like,
yeah,
it's Fortnite. He's gonna lose. I was like, if only nothing else happened this year, then he would just be an overwhelming victory.
Right.
But he's got to compete with the first Fortnite World Cup and a 14-year-old. Because there was also the guy who was like, I'm gonna buy my family a house. Like, so one of the duo people, right? Like, there was all these. The Fortnite World Cup had all these moments that are like super heartwarming of how this money's gonna change these relatively normal people's lives.
I'm sorry, I don't care. I didn't care about any of that. I didn't care about any of that. None of that. Because here's the thing, right? Yes, I realize it's life-changing amount of money. Cool. At the end of the day, anybody who didn't win that money is still fine because they're all Fortnite players. And they're all Fortnite streamers. And they're all making loads of money. So that to me was all right, it's the tournament itself and the money that people made, and this is probably a rant for another day, but I don't care that Booga won $3 million, right? It's nice, it's amazing, but I don't really care. Nothing about the way that story was constructed made me feel wow, this is a true inspiring story of humans doing the most. If they structured the story Booga had to go through 20,000 people to get to where he got to, because basically that's what he had to do. There was almost thousands of competitors in the Fortnite World Cup. That's a way more interesting story than the fact that he just won $3 million. Period. Because at least to me that says this is the level of competition that he had to go through, and this is the amount of people that he beat to get there, as opposed to he just won $3 million. And that's what everybody runs with. Oh, cool, he won $3 million. Oh, that's interesting. Athletes get $3 million just for showing up. The whole story of winning these big tournaments is so archaic for esports. And it's not a story. It's not a story for us to care about.
I'll be real. Every time I watch something on Cheddar, and the first thing that comes up for an event is how much the prize pool is, I'm like, all right, I don't need to know that. It's probably some stupid amount of money.
Yeah.
Tell me how much SKT won for Worlds. That's obvious. It's so weird because Fortnite is all about money, right?
Right.
Every Fortnite story is, oh man, can you believe this event was $1 million prize pool? Can you believe it's 500K?
Right.
Whereas League's I won the world championship.
Yeah.
They don't make that much money for winning. Right. I mean, they do. They do in money, in the sense of money, but it's not Fortnite money.
They're not making $3 million. There wasn't 100. You know, the first time that I had to write the story of like them making 100 million like as the prize pool, I thought it was a typo. Like when I saw the press release, I was just like, oh, they made a typo. This has got to be like 10 million. And like everybody else is reporting 100 million. It's like, oh, all right, 100 million for this entire like tournament. Wow. Like this is we've reached the level where money doesn't even matter anymore. Like we're just running money just for being. Like some of the players that came in like almost dead last got like 50K just for being there.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like everybody ate off that tournament as opposed to Capcom Cup only 250 for 30 seconds race. You know, we don't talk about that though.
Yeah.
Only 250. But no, everybody ate off that. And that's why I'm saying the amount that he won doesn't matter. Because everybody in that competition, you know, had life-changing money just for making it. You know?
So I'll put it this way, real quick. Mm-hmm. So for Worlds, when SKT came in third this year, fourth, they only made $155,000.
Yeah, split between 5 players.
Well, and like the org and yada yada yada.
And the org and everybody else, yeah.
So like, and I know that's weird. I know it's weird to say only $150,000 because you know
no,
only.
I want us to say that because it doesn't matter. It's seriously, it doesn't matter. Sports, I see athletes getting $3 million to be on the bench. Why do I care about Buka winning $3 million?
So like, Arslan, so we should get back on topic though, which is Arslan. So Arslan, obvious. Moving on. Number 2 would be.
Number 2 is definitely going to be Goichi and Sonic Fox at Evo.
Oh man, the tears.
I feel like that wrapped up the saga, like beautifully, and it wrapped it up at a moment where people weren't paying enough attention to Dragon Ball Z, and I think it revitalized that tour in general when that happened. Like now, people are like, "Oh yeah, that's right, Dragon Ball Z is still here," and the fact that they did it on a Saturday, like at like 12 or something. Like they were literally just straight up just disregarded at Evo. They were like, "Oh no, like people don't care about Dragon Ball," and like they had a dope ass story come out from Evo, and it's like, damn, they wrapped up that storyline so well, and now they can go even further because Sonic Fox or Goichi still have to like determine who's gonna win it all together with Kazunoko lurking in the background.
Yo, watch it not be either of them again.
No, it's gonna be Wawa.
Yeah, but right, like, so my second esports moment of the year is Anakin, the Great American Hope. Because, I mean, Anakin's always been lurking in the Tekken World Tour. Like, he's always been qualified ever since its inception when it had, like, the win an event, you're qualified system. But I remember when I was on Best of 5, and they were like, my dark horse for the Tekken World Tour was Anakin. Because I was like, this dude, up until, like, the last couple of weeks, because, like, he just didn't do as well as some of the other people, he was second. I think he was point leader at one point. Mm-hmm. Right?
No,
he was first for, like, a minute. Not like, he went to the first event and won, so he's... No. He was, like, legitimately first. Like, above Knee.
Yeah.
And I was like... Oh, yeah.
One tournament changed that. Like,
I was like,
I think Knee won one tournament or whatever, and then it changed because the way their point system now, has the random like, all right, you need to put in X.
Yeah, and so he went from first to second, and then I think he finished at third. I think it was like Knee and like someone else, and then him. But like, he's my story because he's a guy who now Jack is kind of a high tier character, but like he's not. He doesn't play like the most OP character. It's no Devil Jin, it's no Eddie, it's no Shaheen, it's no Akuma, right?
Akuma.
He's not Korean, so he's never the first person anybody will ever say. Mm-hmm. And yet here he was doing very well for himself this year. And I'll be real with you, I could see an alternate timeline where he had won. Like, I feel like everybody, if he had won Tekken World Tour, it would have been dope, but nobody would have been like, never in the history of Tekken would I have ever thought Anakin could win.
Anakin.
Right? Now, maybe 2017, 2018, that could have been somebody's reaction. This year, I think, and I know that this isn't a moment, I guess, because, like, I'm more referring to his tour performance, but, like, this was the year that, like, I could have believed an American won the Tekken World Tour.
Yeah, I think in general, Anakin kind of put America on his back. Like, a lot of people in past years have like always given that like responsibility to Jimmy J. Tran, and it's like this year for a fact, Anakin was the American player. You could say Shadow as well. Like this year, like stepped up, but I think Shadow's just now getting on the international level, where last year Shadow was definitely like a big national U.S. Competitor. But Anakin put the U.S. on his back. And even when he went to like Tekken World Tour, he showed up. Went to Evo, showed up. And the only thing that really stopped him was the two best players in the world, right?
Yeah.
Nee and Arslan. So alternate timeline.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Alternate timeline, I think he could like if you had told me, I don't know, Joey Fury won last year, I'd be like, "Really? Joey?" I feel like you're feeding me a story. I could have watched the whole event, and if Joey Fury won, I'd still be like, are you sure there's not more matches? Like,
sure this is not top 8?
This is getting top 8? This is getting top 8, right? Like, but like Anakin, for real, and like, don't get me wrong, I love Joey. I think he's a very strong competitor. He did not have a good year this year. It was not a great year for Team Equinox in general as far as placements went. But like, I lost. Nope, there you go.
Yeah, I lost him for a minute.
I honestly feel like this was a year that Anakin could have won, and it wouldn't have shocked me. IDOM winning shocked me.
Yeah, that shocked me.
It shocked me even though I believed in him, and like in the back of my mind, when we wrapped that episode of The Neutral 2 weeks ago, I was like, yo, maybe I should have said 801. I probably should have said IDOM. But then I was like, he plays Laura. Right, like it always comes down to for IDOM. I'm like, but he plays Laura, and like it shouldn't work.
Like literally, the only thing that like some big brain person could have been like, all right, he plays Laura. He plays a character that nobody labs
should
against,
lose to.
He's the best player in the world with Laura. Like he could do it just based on the randomest factor of.
But it's
him
Laura.
Playing against people who didn't. But right, it was Laura, and two, I was like, well, what if he has to face Punk? And Punk has beat him consistently. That's why when I saw it was Punk versus IDOM, I was like, if there was ever a time for IDOM to win, it is right now, because you are not gonna get another chance like this ever. And he did it.
But here's the thing. It would have been easier for him if he didn't have to face Punk. If it was like Taquito or something, I think he would have just won for free.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like, if there was ever a time to win, this is it. And he did it.
So, wait, is IDOM your moment 3?
I want to say IDOM, but it's actually not.
Oh, who is it?
My moment 3 is for a community in general. A whole community.
Oh, is it Eunice?
And that's Eunice.
I knew it was coming.
The reason why I say Eunice is because they showed me that I can believe in the FGC dream. That everything doesn't have to be esports, but it'd be nice if it was. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, literally, I get it. I mean, that's like what a lot of people said.
Yeah, literally Eunice, all they did was play their game. You know, people gave him shit, like said, oh, you know, you're an anime player or whatever, or like, you know, you guys are off in the corner, and all they did was just play their game. And eventually people took notice, and they had a dope ass Evo. Like, I remember I was just like watching that tournament with Clear Love, and I can't remember who we played against, but I was like, man, like these guys are like doing work. Like, I'm so glad that Eunice got this chance. And to me, it kind of brought me back, like, especially seeing Eunice get that shine. It brought me back to the idea. It's like us in the media, we do have to kind of like kowtow to like our overlords or whatever, but we still need to like be aware, because eventually there's going to become a moment where it's like this is going to blow up. I know we can't always cover everything like right away or like in the way that people want it, but it's like I feel like a lot of people need to notice that we do watch and we do pay attention. Like at least the people who are really about the FGC, we care and we pay attention, but like at the end of the day, we have to handle business first. And it comes down to the idea, it's like you guys got to show us. You guys got to show us and give us ammunition for when we do finally like muster up the courage to go to really go to these meetings and like pitch these people that your story deserves that shine. We don't have to like BS people, right? Like I don't think anyone, even though I feel like Eunice didn't get enough coverage, I feel like they still kind of got it. Like they got an ESPN article this year. I think their players didn't get as much shine, but I feel like the scene itself definitely is healthier for the fact that of what they did this year, and now they have a new game and they can do it all again.
So my moment three.
That's in my.
Yeah, that's a good moment. My moment three is I'll actually go with my honorable mention because it includes what my moment three would have been. It technically is, and it's Street Fighter League. Because it includes our Capcom champion. But what it actually is about is that, and I said, I'm kind of repeating something. I've repeated a few points I had the previous episode, which is, surprising how putting the best players in North America all in the same place for a week suddenly rises everybody's play skill. Imagine that. Right?
You know
like, imagine that, like, maybe if North America was like Japan and Korea, where all of the best players can play each other whenever they want. Wow. JB makes Capcom Cup?
What?
Like literally, I like look at it and I'm just like, oh man, just like, and I know I sound super facetious in a way, but I'm not, because there's always this topic in esports that like across every game, every game, that North America's trash at all games. We're trash at League. We're trash at CS:GO. Not right now because the Team Liquid / whatever. We're trash at
no, they're trash again.
Yeah, no, we're only good at the games that other countries don't play. So like we're good at Call of Duty because like nobody else plays that. We're good at Gears because like nobody else plays that.
We're good at Smash
because nobody else plays that.
Except for Leffen.
Except for like Leffen, MK Leo, and like
MK Leo. Oh, never mind. Sorry.
There's like Japanese players too.
We're not good at Smash. We're not good at Smash.
But like, it's this. I mean, Smash is probably the only community where like the NA is trash meme doesn't come up all the time.
Yeah, because there's so much good NA talent.
Yeah,
but we're still kind of trash.
We're still kind of trash. But like, it's this like perennial conversation that comes up in all esports that like North America is just like garbage compared to everybody else. If you take the best North American player and you put him against the best Korean player, the best Japanese player, will just lose. And that didn't really change this year. Our best still lost to Japanese, Europeans, yada yada yada. But shock and behold, how good some of our middle tier players got literally from playing with the other good players for a week. Shine, JB, Just a Kid, 801 Strider, IDOM. Like, look at all of these players. Like, and sure, there are like counter arguments like Up to Snuff, Toy, they didn't really go anywhere. Neon, kind of, but not really, right? Yeah. But like, it doesn't matter. Like, we had an all Street Fighter League finals at Capcom Cup. Some of y'all like not from New York didn't know who IDOM was.
Really? There's people from New York who didn't know who IDOM was.
No, I mean there are people.
That's a
I mean,
shame.
New Yorkers know who have been known who
Oh,
IDOM is,
we know who IDOM. Yeah, I
but
know
like
some American. I
nationally,
know some.
people didn't know who he
Yeah,
was,
yeah. I
right?
know some people who didn't know. Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like
You better not be a New Yorker and not know. That's the king right there, the king of the city.
but like it's so bizarre to me how shocked some people got at how good players like JB and Shine got from getting to play with the other good North American players for a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, oh, so Street Fighter League, you were my moment 3 of the year because like
Mm-hmm.
it's not even random. It's so funny.
Yeah.
And like I wish Street Fighter League could function as a year-round league, but you would have to pay those people so much.
Much. Yeah.
And you'd have to like figure out housing and yada yada yada. So I understand why it's like filmed in like a week and then like broadcasted throughout, 8 weeks. But like shock and surprise.
So I got something to add to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when E-League did their second tournament, right? Their second Street Fighter tournament. And remember that bracket? I think it was like bracket C.
Mm-hmm.
That had like a bunch of those North American players. And I remember it was like Justin Wong, I think Snake Eyes was then in that group, Punk was in the group. It was a lot of North American players. And I remember I asked them, it's like, how do they feel about the North American scene? Like, competitively. And it's like, you could, like, it was a phone interview, and you could hear, like, the size. And, like, Justin Wong straight up was just like, it's just not good. Like, I don't get it. Like, adequate practice. I can't, whenever I play against people in tournaments, they're hiding stuff from me. They're not trying to level up the scene. And just to your point, like, it shows, like, look, we need to start having this idea where it's like, when you go to a tournament, you if you go, like, yes, have your stuff for a tournament, like, have your whatever setups, but like once it's done and said and done, like in casuals, you should be giving it your all to bring up your fellow North Americans, your fellow man, because at the end of the day, that's how the scene itself gets better. That's how the Japanese scene has gotten strong. That's how the Korean scene has gotten strong. But with the idea of collectively, we're all going to build each other up, because when you're better, I'm better. As opposed to, I got to hide my stuff and I got to do this and do that because I want to make sure I win in tournament. And you're never going to get to the level of an IDOM doing that. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact, IDOM, when he plays casuals and stuff like that, he's giving it his all. He's being very vocal about what his character can do and not do. And, he's being honest about, the robbery his character can do. But he's always willing to kind of like give that feedback, and he's willing to take it from other players as well. And that's, SFL probably really did bring him to the forefront, because it forced him to have his secondary, which is Poison. With
I lost you. Well, guys, we are going to go to the technical difficulty screen for a second because we lost our guest. Yeah, I mean, but we have the insert disc 2 screen. We finally get to use it for like the first time ever.
I think it might be. Oh,
you're back. Hold up, I gotta let the stream. I gotta stop using the insert disc 2 screen. All right, so, but yeah, so you were saying IDOM. You were saying that.
Where did I leave off?
You would finish your anecdote about E-League. And then you were saying that, someone like IDOM always gives his all, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. He's always willing to give his all in casuals and, like, really be someone who's receptive to criticism and like give his own criticism as well. And just like I was saying, it's like you have to try to raise the entire scene, because if I get better, you get better. And
So
I think
my counterpoint to that though is that, and I have never believed that North America is bad at any esport.
no, they're not.
I'll start there.
Mhm.
Because if that was true, then like literally when like NA players go on the Korean server, they would never get to Challenger. Or if they went to EU, they would never get to Challenger, and obviously they can. So the fact that North America is bad at a game just does not exist, right?
Right.
That would mean that every time we faced up against anybody from any region, we would just always get curb stomped. So obviously not true. Basis of my argument. I think the problem that North America suffers from as a country when it comes to esports is that we're too damn big, and that comparatively to other countries, we are, we have states the size of other countries.
Right.
And so, for example, NuckleDo can't play practice matches versus IDOM. Just cause, right? Like you gotta deal with netcode. He lives in Florida. IDOM lives in New York City.
Right.
It's just not viable. Right?
But that's not the fault of the players. And
no, it's not the fault of the players.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that like when you said in your anecdote that like Snake Eyes, Justin, and all of them sighed about like how the talent is, I think that's slightly.
Well, they didn't really sigh about the talent. They sighed about the attitudes that people had.
Yeah,
and
I get that, but what I think one of the issues that I have with that is that when the only time you get to play Justin Wong, right, is either in bracket or Justin's like, yeah, sure, I need to warm up before my matches, so I'll play you in some casuals. Yeah, you're probably not wanting feedback, right? And so, I understand that this isn't an NA problem. This has been brought up in every interview that I've ever had with players. They bring up that there's like a bad mentality. I think Rob TV has said it when he did that video.
Yeah.
That kind of put him on the map, right? Where he was like, NA, we got to get our shit together. But I have to say that some of it has to do with the fact that like if you live in bumblefuck region. Right, and you're and like you're grandmaster on the ladder, which means fucking nothing. And then you go to a tournament, you're not always in that mindset of like I need to learn. You're like I gotta maximize my time here. I need to play against as many high level players as possible, and because their main training is online, you don't get feedback online. Right. So the difference between like NA versus like Korea, Japan, the London, UK scene is that like it seems to me for their scenes that they get a lot of playtime in-house.
Right.
In face-to-face. So when you battle somebody face-to-face, inevitably somebody's going to say, hey man, you didn't need to flash kick there. You could have used any other anti-air. You could have just let me, like, there were a bunch of things you could have done in this situation that was flash kick.
Right.
When you're a community that a lot of the people just play online, they don't go to locals. And when they go to locals, they're like, all right, I'm like, maybe they play in a crowded place, so nobody really hangs out inside the venue unless they're playing. You don't have that opportunity. You're not trained to accept feedback or to even give it. So like I get what a lot of the people are saying, Rob TV, Justin, Snake Eyes. But the problem for me is that like there's a big difference in it's not our mentality because like we don't know how to communicate with each other. It's our programmed response to how we play. Because so much of our players, they just play online. And
so basically what you're saying is because of the way the US scene is structured now, where mostly we play online and we're mostly just playing for rank or whatever. When we get to tournament, we don't have the same etiquette, or
we use the same etiquette we use when we play online.
Or we use the same etiquette when we play online, and online doesn't allow us to do much.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. But then, I mean, if that's the case, I
agree with you that mindset is still a problem. The general framework is mindset, but I think it's often spinned as like we as players have a bad mindset, and the only people who have the right mindset are pros.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that
that's just learned.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that this is a learned response. Right? Because remember, Idom went from online warrior to being dragged to NLBC, where he has to interact with other people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There is I would say more than half of the people that go to a tournament don't play at a local on a regular basis.
Right.
I would say that
they
most
go to their big major and
they go to their regional, maybe go to a regional, or but they play mostly online and in lab. And who do you expect to get feedback for when you lab? Yourself. Right? You confer notes because you're trying to do, the new Daigo Ryu combo, right? So you do it, you're not doing it right. You go watch the video, right? It's all internal, it's all self. So a lot of these people, I think they have the learned response of, oh, well, I fucked up, I got destroyed by Justin. Well, I have my friend, recording it on his phone. I'm now gonna go watch that.
Right.
Right? It's all the same thing, right? The mindset is bad, but it seems like some people have the idea that the mindset is bad because they're just not enlightened. Right? They haven't reached that they're not Bruce Leroy, right? They don't have the glow, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, it's not because they don't have the glow, motherfucker. It's because we don't live near each other and we don't play on a regular basis. Like, I know for a fact from, like, my local Smash community that people aren't just, like, always going over each other's houses and playing Smash, right? And this is, like, and I have a Smash community that has a weekly local, right? I'm not, like, a bi-weekly or a monthly. Like, they have a weekly local. I know for a fact that their top players that their mid-tier players don't always just keep going over to people's houses and keep playing Smash.
Right.
Right? That's not true for Japan. I know from talking to Bonjan that people come over his crib and play.
Yeah.
Just to play.
Yeah, I don't hear any of that, even in New York.
You don't hear any of that in California. You don't I mean, like, maybe I'm wrong. I should, like, maybe ask, like, Alex Myers or, like, LPN. But I doubt there's sessions going on at people's houses. The only time sessions happen is, like, NCR.
I mean, if that was happening, it would have been streamed.
Yeah. And
we would know about it because they would stream it. Because they know it's content that they can put out there that would be good content. Like, oh, I got... Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I think it's literally, I think, just the way that we execute. I think that, like... And I'll be real. There are definitely personable people like Snake Eyes and Justin who do kind of try to, like... I watched Snake Eyes at Red Bull Seattle. Some unfortunate thing happened. He didn't get to compete. So he was just playing casuals. And he was constantly, like, talking to people about stuff. But that's not every pro. And we had a conversation about some pros before the show.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, when you know the type of people that these North American players play against, like, why would they expect to have feedback sessions?
Only when they're forced to do it with, like, something like SFL.
Yeah.
Because basically now you need your player your partner to be good, so like you need to, like, help him out as much as you can. Yeah, I get it.
See? So it's just like I get it. We need to change culturally as a fighting game community.
Yeah.
But it's not gonna happen overnight. And I think, I mean, like, I don't know. It's cool that Knuckle Dew is doing the team house, and I think that that's, like, definitely a step in the right direction. But, like, why isn't... I'm sorry, Alex, I love you. So you're just the first name that pops into my house. Like, I don't know why I haven't heard from, like, when I do my interviews with Alex Myers, why he's not like, yo, I have, once a week sessions at my crib, right? Where I invite all the top, I don't know if Commander Jesse lives in it. Well, I guess he does. Like, I invite Samurai and Commander Jesse over, and LPN, and this person and that person. We just grind out games, right?
I mean, wasn't that the great Alex Valle story of how Wednesday Night Fights was started? Like, they all got together, they got stomped by the East Coast, and it's like, all right, we're never gonna let this happen again. They all got together, and it's like all of a sudden the West Coast became like the best the best region for Street Fighter 4 players. And I mean, we it's not like we don't have the history. We know the history. It's like, so why don't we just start repeating things that we know work,
Yeah, I think that's a thing that the FGC should consider in the future, is this idea of, like, maybe you have to build that mindset, and the way that you build that mindset is that you increase the amount of times you play people face to face.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean,
I didn't get better at soccer because, like, I sat at home all day and, like, kicked the ball around. I went to soccer camp. I played pickup games. I was always playing with other people. And when I didn't do something good, or, like, I got like fooled, like, people were like, "Hey, man, your stance is too wide. That's why you're getting nutmegged all the time." Right? I wouldn't think about that, because when you're in the moment, you're not always thinking about, like, how your body's positioned. And so I remember, like, I got, like, a coach in one of my practices was like, "Hey, you stand with your feet. When you plant your feet are too wide apart. When you plant your feet, you need to plant them closer together so that someone can't just nutmeg you," which is, for those of you who don't know, is kicking the ball between somebody's legs. So, like, I was like, all right, cool. I didn't realize that was why that was happening. I just, like, because it's all, in my experience, it's only happening in an instant. So I can't learn from that mistake.
Right. You're thinking it's just someone doing something to you, as opposed to you setting up the situation that causes that, right?
Yeah. So, like, but that's only from constant face-to-face interactions, right? Mm-hmm. We need to build out in a way where, like, we're encouraging more and more. We have all these character discords, and I'm sure, like, like, I don't know. It just seems bizarre to me that, because, like, this mentality isn't natural, right? When you learn, you want to talk to people and you want to get better, right? Especially if you're competitive. So it can't just be, and it's not a cultural thing, because, like, I know in other sports, I know Scrabble, anything that I've ever played competitively, that feedback is a part of playing. So it's weird to me that it's just in Street Fighter. Or I should say just in Street Fighter. It's just in American fighting games.
Do you think, I hate to put it out there, because I know how it's going to be received, but do you think that esports is the reason why that's happening? Do you think mean? because these big prize pools, are coming into the space, and it's like there's a lot more on the line, and it's like, maybe I should kind of keep things a little closer to my chest? That's the reason why it's happening, or you don't think that's a consequence?
I think that might be the reason why I think that might be true physically at tournaments, right? You're like, like, you lose to Justin Wong, and you're like, well, we might face each other in brackets, so I really don't want to talk about why, right? So, like, you don't want to expose your weakness to Justin, because maybe he doesn't see it. Maybe Justin's just similar to, like, the nutmeg situation, right? Maybe this is just happening because this guy's better than me,
right?
And you don't want to express, oh, hey, I think this is a weakness of mine, because then that can be exploited for me and I don't win the tournament, blah, 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 blah. So I think that might be part of it, but I think intrinsically, the thing that's unique about the FGC compared to other esports is that, like, sure, anyone can win, right? Yeah. Anyone can win. I could somehow make the heroic run at a Soul Calibur 6 tournament. Right? Things work out. I mash some buttons correctly. I do well in my pulls because I'm actually good, but then, like, the rest of it's just, like, dumb luck, character matchup, whatever, right? And then in the finals versus, a good player, their controller breaks and I win.
Right.
Right?
It's in basically it's in the realm of possibility with the FGC as opposed to like esports where it's like you don't even get a seat.
Yeah. However, yes, anybody could win, but there's enough people that go to events knowing that they're going to O2. Right? Nobody.
But how does?
So what I'm getting at is that like those people, like what's unique to the FGC is that even a team in League of Legends that is pretty sure they're not going to win the world championship is still going to boot camp, is still going to scrim, right? They're still going to do all of the things that they need to do to have the best chance of them not looking like a fool at Worlds, right? To not go 0-6 in their group.
Right.
And it's so weird to me that in the FGC you have people who also know that they're going to go 0-2, but they just don't communicate. And we'll never know the answer to that.
Do you think it's probably because everybody in the FGC kind of has different reasons for going to tournaments? Because I've heard a lot of people just straight up say like, yeah, I know I'm going to go 0-2, but like, you know, I'm just here to have a good time. And it's like, I feel like you can have a balance, right? Like you don't have to just be going for a good time. Like you can also improve yourself as a player. Like,
and so I
don't
think
shut
that's
yourself down beforehand.
Yeah, I think that and because you know we're starting to run over. I think that is true. I think that one of the big issues is that everyone's there for a different reason, and that means that sometimes you're gonna play casuals or you're gonna be warming up with somebody who he just happened to be at the station. You know, she just happened to be at the open station that NuckleDu sat down at to warm up. And so NuckleDu's there to warm up, and you're just there to get your games in before your pool, and then, you know, you're down to just, like, hang out with your friends for the rest of the day. Yeah. So I think that is probably the large portion, because I think that and so I guess that this is where Western mentality as an organic cultural thing comes into play, is that, like, casual doesn't mean the same thing in the rest of the world that I think it does in the US. We connotate casual as fun. You know, not trying. You know, have a good time. And what we conflate those words to mean is that, sure, I lost because I'm a casual.
Right. It's an excuse for your losses.
Whereas I think culturally for other people, you can try and be a casual. Casual just means you're not trying to be professional.
Right. So basically you're saying you're just not on the professional level.
Yeah.
But a casual player isn't a consequence. A casual player is just you haven't reached that level yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I see it in Magic, right? I play a lot of Magic. And I remember I have friends who play Magic, you know, casually versus me who I used to play semi-professionally. And when I would play with people, they'd be like, well, why can't you play more casual? Like, even if we were playing, like, in a non-competitive setting, people would be like, well, why don't you play more casually? And I'm like, but I am. Like, this is my casual deck. It's not designed to win. It's just, it's my have fun. And they're like, well, it's not casual. And so it feels like to me, culturally, in North America, we define casual as bad or not good or, you know, fun. And so when those casual players sit down to play Street Fighter, Tekken, whatever, they're not expecting to get feedback. They're there to, you know, as I attribute it, even though other people say I attribute it to Patrick Miller. If you know, I'm just there to push buttons, right? I think that there's a huge gap between the understanding that you can just push buttons, but also try to push them better.
Yeah, like I feel like the mindset of improving doesn't have to go away just because your goal isn't to win.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still improve, and at the end of the day, it's like, oh, I got a little bit better. Cool. I didn't have a main goal of winning the whole tournament or getting out of bracket or even winning this match, but at least like I know that this guy can't do this on me now because I learned something, and it's like I can take that with me wherever I go. Yeah.
So we're at the hour 45 mark. So
Yeah.
that's why the current topic on the screen is end. Uh, so is there anybody?
I don't even see in topics.
Yeah, it says the neutral current topic. I've never actually used this panel. I use the panel, but I usually just leave it as the person's name the whole episode. I'm trying something new today where I'm like constantly changing the topic to suit what we're talking about. I'm trying to be more professional, man. It's hard. I'm a one-person show. I don't got segment producers and shit. It's just me.
Well, excuse me. Even sometimes having those, it's still just at the end of the day, just regular.
Yeah.
People are most of the time we're just going through the motions.
So, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at twitter.com/writewellalways. That's WRITEWELLAWYS.
I was gonna say if you spelt it wrong,
I've been waiting for years to get the just regular Writewell one, and it's like next summer I'm getting it because I know Twitter is gonna get rid of it. So next year I'm gonna get it.
Yo, because there's people getting kicked.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm mad because, everybody always suggests to me, oh, you should switch to, Sage, right? Instead of Sage Gnosis. Yeah. Because people don't know how to say Gnosis. And I was like, you know what? I would totally take just Gnosis or just Sage on Twitter, but both of those motherfuckers actively use their accounts. So I will never get to be that person that they fade out of existence. So
you got to do the @ sign. But no, the @ sign as the A doesn't help either.
Yeah. So y'all know where you can find me on the internet. You're here. I'll move to the single player screen real quick. Hey, look, it's all of my socials. Write them down. We're gonna go back to 2-player screen with the magic of editing. I promise you guys that before the holidays are in full swing, there will be a video up explaining what's going on with the neutral in 2020. There's going to be quite a few changes. The one that I can definitely tell you right now is that we are going to be moving the show from my personal YouTube to its own YouTube. This is just because I want to be doing more content in 2020. And I don't want people who are signed up for the neutral to be bombarded with stuff that is not what they're interested in. So my personal YouTube is going to be more about content creation and talking to content creators. And the neutral will be just fighting game stuff in general. So that's the big change that you guys are going to hear about. There's also going to be some more stuff. It's all good. There's going to be more than neutral next year.
That's good.
That's good.
That's all good.
But it's just going to change. But the holidays are coming up. I know Hanukkah's in full swing. Christmas is 2 days away, 1 day away when you guys see this on YouTube. So have a happy and a healthy. Kwanzaa's coming up. Enjoy that. You guys won't see this show before the new year, so have a happy new year. And until next time, go beyond, plus ultra, and peace.
Peace.